So I'm going to use this softer side of this rib and just put a little bit of a soft mark that will run up the side. I just want to hint. And one of the things that I sort of want to see if we can talk about is I didn't torque the pot, which sometimes I do, and like to get this mark to be real deep. What I wanted from this mark was just a real nice soft mark that might be a background for doing some wax resist decoration on top of. But even so, you can see that like where, even with a soft impression, you can see that I really do gather clay across a wide area on the rib. Like if all I did, which is to gather clay here, that would make a much different mark and would be much smaller. Gathering clay across a wide area makes it so that I get to sort of separate that mark. And the same thing will happen with this more hard-edged mark. So again, if all I had done was just, so you can see where the clay gathers across, like I said, a wide area of the rib. If all I had done was just use this part, in other words, take this away, then I would just sort of gotten a trough. Like I said, I like this mark to actually have some depth and change the plane in the pot. And the same thing will happen up here at the top of the pot. And of course, mostly this is just getting used to a wheel speed and how quickly to move your rib up and down. If you all are using these ribs or are interested in this kind of mark making that comes from these ribs, take the clay away from the edge because these ribs will cut you. But I don't think you're a real potter until you've cut yourselves several times. I've let this pot set up for a little bit of time. So right now, like when I touch this pot, I can feel the clay just holding onto my fingertips a little bit. Got that little bit of a tacky feel to it. And all I want to do at this stage is take this pot and put it into an oval, and then we'll wait again for it to dry out a little bit more, lose some moisture. When I was putting these lines in, I like to have this little bit of raised area here, and then I like to take that raised area and put that out sort of into the, what would that be, like the apex of the curve. So that in some ways what that does is sort of puts that raised area out where the kind of hip place, hip as in body part, not hip as in super cool. You can tell that one of the things I did off camera was I put a piece of plastic across the top of this. So what I want from this, from the drying stage that we left after I ovaled it to this stage is I want this to dry out enough so I can pick it up and stretch it out on the table and not have it collapse. And because this is where the picking up will happen, is out here at the edges, I wanted to keep this a little bit wet through here but have this dry so that I could pick it up and not have the clay tear. So this will come off and we'll see where we are with this. So I want this to be vertical. I'll start stretching. And I keep coming back throughout this to keep this as vertical as I can. This will get more obvious later. And where I'm holding this out here is at the edges. What I don't want to do is hold it up here, because that again would just tear the clay. So I'm reaching past the rim and holding and picking this clay up as deep into the body as I can manage. I do like to do some stretching from both sides, but because I like to get that kind of movement into the pot, I'll actually do more stretching on one side of the pot than I will on the other. So we're going to get to this point. We're going to leave this side alone. And I'm going to come back. So some of what's happening with this stretching, if I take this pot and do it here, that gets this part to stretch. If I try to take this pot and do more of this, that gets this end to stretch and also lift. So it's one of those, like I said, nice things to just start noticing what's happening with this pot. So we're going to, with this, we're going to sort of call this as much stretching as we can get out of here. And one of the things I'll do with this is continue to shape it. So this area out here that I said, where this line, the rib line, was put into the clay, I kind of like coming back in here and start to move this and continue to do some shaping. And this is a pretty wide area. What I'll be doing with this pot is putting this pot up on feet. This is a long area to expect just to have feet out here at the ends and have this be supported. So I set off a little area here where I'll put a foot as support. Do a little more shaping. And with this pot, I'm going to put a little place in here, which is a cutout place. And that could go anywhere, but because this started to open up here, this actually would be a place where I would be thinking about putting it anyway, so I got lucky that way. But because this started to open up, if I didn't want this to be sort of have a cutout section, I'd just patch that, and that would be pretty easy. But this is where I sort of like to break this pot and put a cutout section. So I'll bring that together, but first I want to give these ends a little bit of a lift. This clay is wet enough that all I really need to do is run the toothbrush lightly across where the connection is going to happen and then pinch this area together. As soon as this pinched off area dries and secures itself, I'll come back to it and add a coil.